Hey everyone, so now we know Thomas Frank has named his captain, and it is, as expected, Christian Romero. Good choice, good choice. It kind of indicates that maybe Romero isn't keen on just moving on. Maybe he is tied to his contract, and maybe he is going to see it out and maybe beyond. Maybe he is happy at the club, and maybe he does want to be part of its future. I in terms of his quality, he is one of the better players within this squad. In terms of his standing, he is a World Cup winner, Copa America winner, Europa League winner, and has always been part of the leadership group. So has obviously given his opinions over the course of time and showed that leadership quality. So not a surprise really at all. I guess the big criticism has always been around his discipline in terms of getting sent off, which seems to have improved an awful lot. I don't get, we don't hear too much about that anymore. Maybe that's the side of his game that he's kind of sorted out. I guess the other issue is his injury record. He's obviously had a fair bit of injury since he's been with us, which is disappointing. But you can't plan for injuries from that point of view. You've got to expect that they are an inevitability, but not necessarily something that is always going to plague a player. You've only got to look at Porro, who's had a brilliant season last season without getting injured. I hope I've not put the mockers on him for that, to be fair. And then, of course, the final bit is we haven't really heard him speaking in English and in terms of press conferences and stuff like that. Well, if he's going to be the captain, then he's going to have to face up to that. And we have seen today his interview where he's kind of saying how proud he is to have picked up the role and that sort of stuff, and how he's not particularly keen on talking to cameras. Not everybody is. Not everybody's comfortable with the media spotlight. Doesn't mean you can't lead in terms of the group that you're in if you've got certain aspects of it that you're not particularly keen on. I would guess that if you ask most captains around football, if they didn't have to do the press conferences, they would vote not to have them, as opposed to having to face these out all the time. So I don't think he's alone in that aspect, especially talking in a different language as well. Like I say, you're seeing him speaking English there. His English is far better than my Spanish, for sure. So we can have people that will mock the fact that a player can't speak the language or whatever. But as an English person, we are very, very lazy in that respect, and expect everybody to speak our language as opposed to making the effort to learn it ourselves. So I'm never one to criticise someone's ability to speak English from another country. I think it's commendable that people can actually do that. It amazes me how well people have can kind of pick that sort of stuff up. So yeah, am I happy? Yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy that we've got some stability now, and we've got some clarity. And as I say, I was expecting it to be someone like Romero, or probably Vicario. I think Vicario is quite an outspoken player, someone who kind of lets those around him know what he thinks. Not always impressed with the way he runs out and just shouts at people when, maybe you could look at yourself a little bit. But listen, it is what it is. The other one I was kind of waiting for, and I thought if he says this, it's going to cause a massive meltdown, was of course Ben Davies, who gets so much stick. But in terms of every coach who's been in, they've absolutely loved him and absolutely respected him. So, but what a meltdown that would have been. But I would expect him to be part of the leadership group. He is an older player now. He is a winner. He's been around the squad a long time, seen lots and lots of changes. So I would expect him to be able to talk on behalf of some of the younger players and give their opinions to the coaches and so on if they're not comfortable doing that themselves. So that's the next thing, leadership group. I think Thomas Frank said 4 or 5 players, but he's going to wait until the end of the window, which kind of indicates to me that there may be a few outgoings and there will be some incomings that he may want to consider, depending on who they are and how they kind of come across and what sort of qualities they bring to the overall squad. So it'll be interesting to see who comes into that. But as I say, as you look at it now, you would think players like Vicario and Ben Davies would be in there. I think one of the others who was quite sort of vocal, one of the younger players, I think it was Archie Gray. Actually, he was quite vocal and quite strong, who kind of got himself into that. So we'll see. I think in terms of a leadership group, it does need to be a little bit diverse in terms of the players and the players' views and friendship groups and that kind of stuff, to give everybody a voice, so that the manager and the coaching team understand exactly what's happening on the ground, what's happening with the players. Because as much as you kind of look at it, this is like a business type scenario. You've got your coach who's the manager, you've got your coaches who are your supervisors, that sort of stuff, and then you've got the players who are technically the staff. Everybody can't know everything, so some coaches will have better relationships with some players than others and so on. So you want to make sure you've got a good, even view across it all, because you don't want to miss anything. Because these are people, after all. At the end of it all, these are people, and they have problems, they have issues, they have responsibilities. They have good times, they have bad times. We've seen it with, talking about Richarlison with his mental health issues and so on. And of course, now we've got this issue with Bissouma. I don't think that's going to have been a one-off. I think there must be more to the story than just being late a few times. So a leadership group may well have been able to get to the bottom of that and supported him through that to make sure that he is, understanding his responsibilities, and the coaches are understanding what's impacting that, what's making that happen. It could be something as simple as he's been told he's surplus to requirements and they're going to look to move him on, or they're listening to offers, and maybe he's down tools, maybe he's got the ump. But, the kind of talk is that it's been like this a while. He's not necessarily been the most responsible. I mean, we only have to look at last season with the whole balloon scenario and all the rest of it. So, we'll see. I'm sure it'll all come out in the wash. Like I keep saying, in someone's autobiography at some point, we'll hear exactly what that's all about. But listen, tonight, Super Cup, really excited about it, excited to have football back in some kind of meaningful way. I'll be out with the South Dorset Spurs boys round the new town watching that, and hoping for a narrow 1-0 win. I'll be happy with that, take it all day long. But yeah, season starts on Saturday. I'll be there at the Burnley game, looking forward to that, to actually getting back to some sort of regularity, so can't wait. Anyway, thanks for watching, and as always, if you don't subscribe and you like this channel, please do consider subscribing. Won't cost you anything. The subscriber count has been going up since I've been asking, so if I ask, it does go up a little bit, so thanks for that. If I don't ask, I don't get nothing. So I'd ask the question, please do consider subscribing. Please do consider giving it a thumbs up. Please do consider leaving a comment, because I like to read all of the comments, even if some of them are not particularly nice. But, it's still interesting to have everybody's views. But as I say, thanks for watching, and as always, up the Spurs.